Night had fallen, a storm raged. I stumbled upon an old chateau, dark and desolate. The chateau stood on a high cliff. It seemed to watch the wild sea below. Exhausted and injured, I sought shelter within. The chateau was silent, filled with shadows. The air hung heavy, thick with dust and decay. I found myself in a room filled with paintings. Strange and eerie, they seemed to watch my every move. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, I was drawn deeper. A sense of melancholy hung heavy in the air. I felt a strange connection to this forgotten place, a place lost to time and memory. The paintings in the chateau were captivating. Each one seemed to whisper a forgotten story. My eyes fell upon a small, oval portrait, partially hidden in the shadows. It drew me in. It was the portrait of a young woman. Her beauty was striking, almost ethereal. Her eyes seemed to follow me, filled with a strange life. I felt a chill. Why was this portrait hidden? I needed to know more. I searched the room, desperate for information about the portrait. Finally, I discovered a book, tucked away on a dusty shelf. It was filled with descriptions and stories of the paintings in the chateau. With trembling hands, I opened the book. My heart pounded. I had to know the story behind the mysterious oval portrait. I found the entry. It described the artist and his muse, his young bride. The artist was renowned, a master of his craft. His passion for art consumed him. He saw beauty in everything, especially in his young wife. She, too, seemed to love him deeply. But a darkness lurked beneath the surface of their love story. The book hinted at the artist's obsession, his desire to capture his wife's beauty for eternity. An unsettling premonition gripped me. I read on. The artist decided to paint his masterpiece, a portrait of his beloved. He became consumed by his work. Days turned into nights. He wouldn't rest, wouldn't eat, wouldn't even look away from the canvas. His wife, patient and loving, posed for him tirelessly. She never complained, even as her own health began to fade. She loved him, and she understood his passion. But the artist was blind to everything except his art. His obsession grew stronger. He saw flaws in every brushstroke, demanding perfection from himself and his muse. He became distant from his wife, lost in a world of paint and canvas. Section 5. The Lady's Fate. As the portrait neared completion, the young woman grew weaker. Her once vibrant beauty faded, the life drained from her eyes. The artist, lost in his work, remained oblivious. One day the woman collapsed. She was confined to her bed, her life slowly slipping away. Still the artist continued to paint. He saw only the canvas, not the fading light in his wife's eyes. He believed that his art would immortalize her beauty, that his masterpiece would capture her essence for all time. He failed to see that he was capturing her life force, brushstroke by brushstroke. Section 6. Life imitating art. Finally, the portrait was finished. It was a masterpiece, breathtaking in its beauty and realism. The artist stood back, admiring his work, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. He had done it. He had captured her forever. He turned to his wife, eager to show her the finished portrait. But when he looked at the bed, his blood ran cold. His wife was dead. She had died as he put the final touches on her portrait. The artist was devastated. He had been so consumed by his art, so obsessed with capturing his wife's beauty, that he had failed to see her fading away before his eyes. He had been so blinded by his desire to create art that he had destroyed the very thing he sought to preserve. Section 7. A haunting revelation. The book fell from my hands. I stared at the oval portrait, now illuminated by a flickering candle. The realization hit me. The woman in the portrait wasn't just a subject, a muse. She was a victim. The artist's obsession had cost him his wife, his muse, his love. He had sacrificed her life on the altar of his art, and now her spirit seemed to reside within the portrait. A cold wind swept through the chateau. The portrait seemed to pulsate with a life of its own. The woman's eyes held a new depth, a mixture of sadness, accusation, and eternal imprisonment. Section 8. a brush with death. I backed away from the portrait, fear gripping my heart. The chateau felt colder, the air heavier. I could feel the artist's despair, his madness, his guilt seeping from the walls. He had trapped his wife's soul in the painting. The storm outside raged, mirroring the turmoil within the chateau and within my soul. I realized that the chateau wasn't just a house. It was a tomb, a monument to a love destroyed by obsession. I had to escape. This place was filled with sorrow, with the ghosts of a tragic past. I ran from the room, desperate to escape the haunting presence of the oval portrait. Section 9. The Price of Obsession. I stumbled through the dark halls of the chateau, my mind racing. The story of the artist and his muse was a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. The artist's desire for immortality through his art had cost him everything. What had he gained? A masterpiece, yes, but at what cost? He had lost his love, his sanity, his soul. He had condemned himself to a lifetime of guilt and regret, and he had condemned his wife to an eternity trapped within the canvas. I burst out of the chateau into the raging storm. The rain beat down on me, washing away the terror of the night. I looked back at the chateau, its silhouette a dark shadow against the stormy sky. It was a place of sorrow, a reminder of the price of obsession. Section 10. Forever entranced. I never forgot that night. The image of the oval portrait, the woman's haunting eyes, the artist's tragic tale stayed with me. It served as a warning, a reminder that true art should celebrate life, not consume it. The artist had sought to cheat death, to capture beauty for eternity. But in doing so, he had destroyed the very thing that gave his art meaning. He had traded love for legacy, life for art, and in the end he was left with nothing but a haunted canvas. And so the oval portrait remained, a testament to a love twisted by obsession, a chilling reminder that some things are best left unpainted. The woman in the portrait continued to watch, her eyes reflecting the eternal tragedy of her fate, forever young, forever beautiful, forever trapped.